Welcome back to Omoshiroi Recap. Today, I will recap UQ Holder. The story begins with a high school student named Konoe Touta. He and his friends planned to launch a surprise attack on their teacher named Yukihime, but they were easily defeated by Yukihime because she had a magic barrier protecting her. The reason why they did this was that it turned out that if they managed to strike one blow to Yukihime, then they were allowed to go to the capital there and climb the orbital elevator. After their plan did not work, they intended to train to strengthen themselves. But Touta did not join the training because he wanted to stop by the funeral of his parents. 2 years ago, Touta and his family had an accident, causing his family to die while Touta lost his memory. Knowing this, Yukihime made Touta her adopted son and lived together as a family. After that, Touta saw his grandfather's shadow. He was Nagi. Nagi said he would wait for Touta at the top of the tower. Because they could not defeat Yukihime, they asked for help from a teacher named Takabana. He would gladly teach them the basics of magic, but Touta cannot use magic. So Takabana gave him a bracelet for Touta, and he was asked to give the bracelet to Yukihime. When at home, Touta was embarrassed to give the bracelet. Touta explained that the bracelet was a gift to Yukihime for taking care of him for 2 years. The next day, suddenly, Yukihime was attacked by Tauta's friends. But after that, Takabana paralyzed them all, and he intended to kill Yukihime. It turns out that Takabana is a bounty hunter who has been eyeing Yukihime for 6 months. Yukihime was injured as a result of the previous bracelet that could seal her magic power. When Takabana wanted to kill her, Touta came to save her. Unfortunately, Touta was still too weak to fight him. In the end, Yukihime and Touta were seriously injured, and their bodies were cut. But unexpectedly, they were still alive. It turned out that 2 years ago, Yukihime had turned Touta into an immortal demon. That's why Yukihime asked Touta to drink her blood so he could awaken his true power. With that power, Touta can defeat Takabana with one punch. After Touta regained consciousness from his stupor, Yukihime explained everything and revealed her real name, Evangeline, a vampire who had lived for 700 years. Revealed the incident 2 years ago that someone had attacked Tauta's family. Then, his parents begged Yukihime to save Touta. Touta, who had died, was resurrected as an immortal demon. Yukihime also explained that being immortal is not a gift but a curse. Knowing this, Touta did not mind as long as he could continue to be with Yukihime. Because Yukihime's identity had been revealed, they had to leave the place as soon as possible. Touta and Yukihime decided to head to the capital, and Touta parted ways with his classmates. They headed to the capital on foot. While resting there, Touta instead met someone in the river. He was named Takasaka Kuramaru. After Touta managed to avoid Kuramaru's attack, they talked to each other. Kuramaru explained that he was a man and came from the top of the tower. But he was sent down to look for someone and was not allowed to return home before finding that person. Even though originally, his family just wanted to kick Kuramaru out of the house. Then, he was surprised to see that Touta had no shadow. When Yukihime met them there, immediately, Kuramaru launched an attack on Yukihime. It turned out that Kuramaru was an immortal demon hunter. When Kuramaru wanted to kill Yukihime, she immediately countered his attack by hollowing out his body. Unexpectedly, his body can regenerate. Certainly, Kuramaru is also an immortal demon. Kuramaru must kill Yukihime, otherwise he cannot return home. Knowing that sad story, Yukihime asked the two of them to fight each other, and the loser had to obey the winner's orders. So there was a pretty fierce battle between them, but the winner of the battle was Touta. As the winner, Touta also asked Kuramaru to be his best friend forever, and they made a contract agreement. Then they enjoyed the bath together. Touta also invited Kuramaru to peek at Yukihime, who was bathing. Because Kuramaru refused, Touta headed there alone quickly. Unexpectedly, the original form of Yukihime was a child, while the previous sexy body was just a disguise. Yukihime would gladly show her body to him if Touta managed to snatch her towel. Still, Touta was not interested in that at all.
だからいいって。おばさんの裸興味ないっす。ミニスカース。
Kuramaru realized that he was still weak and his family had abandoned him. Therefore, Kuramaru wanted to become Yukihime's student. Yukihime accepted and would train him to become stronger. As they continued their journey, suddenly many cars came towards them. There was a girl named Karen welcoming Yukihime's arrival there. It turns out that Yukihime is the leader of the immortal human organization called UQ Holder. Then, they were taken to the main headquarters of UQ Holder. Once there was a group of people nicknamed Number. One of them is Maccabee, number 6, and Amiya, number 10. Even though Touta and Kuramaru are Yukihime's students, they still have to pass a test if they want to enter the organization. Karen will fight Touta, while Kuramaru will fight Maccabee. They only need to throw one punch at them to pass the test. However, the surprise attack did not work on Karen. Even Kuramaru still couldn't hurt Maccabee. While resting, they met a waitress named Shinobu. She was just an ordinary human who worked as a waitress there. They also helped Shinobu's work by carrying several boxes into the warehouse, but they got lost in the underground place. While there, they met a drunk man named Jinbei, who was member UQ Holder number 2. Jinbei asked Touta to lift a katana there. If successful, then the katana would be his. Touta tried his best but couldn't lift it. Suddenly Touta heard a voice telling him to turn the knob on the katana. Thanks to that, Touta could easily lift the katana. It turns out that the katana can talk. He has a unique ability that can change the weight of the katana at will. If the user's physical strength is strong, then he can launch a stronger attack with the katana. In the end, they both practiced there. After 7 days had passed, they met Maccabee and Karen, and they fought each other. Because Kuramaru managed to injure Maccabee, he was officially a member of the UQ Holder. As a result of the battle, Maccabee's life was reduced by 1 and the remaining 254 lives. Meanwhile, the Touta battle was stopped because they heard Shinobu was in danger and was surrounded by magical monsters. They immediately saved Shinobu, and then Touta launched his attack until the monster was wiped out without a trace. The attack also managed to injure Karen, so Karen accepted Touta as a member of the UQ Holder. The next day, Yukihime gave them their first mission. They still had no experience in dealing with immortal demon hunters, so Karen was in charge of supervising them. After finishing preparing themselves, they immediately headed to the mission site. Their mission was to protect the children who lived in the church from the villains who wanted to destroy the slums. There was a beautiful city, but behind it was a bad guy who controlled everything. Once there, they divided the task of cooking by means of arm wrestling because Touta lost, and then he was in charge of cooking. Unexpectedly, Tauta's cooking was extraordinary and made everyone addicted to his cooking. After that, Touta practiced the flash step technique alone. When he practiced, a man approached him, and he introduced himself as a master in the flash step technique named Kaido. Feeling interested in him, Kaido will teach him the flash step technique so that he can fly to the sky with the technique. In his first practice, he had to train his legs in doing anything, including when cooking using his legs. After practicing for days, Touta has begun to master the flash step technique. But Kaido said that it was still not perfect, and he still needed more practice. A few days later, there was an immortal demon hunting group. It turned out that Kaido was one of them. He turned into a werewolf and prepared to slaughter everyone in the slum. Immediately, there was a big fire there, and Touta and Kuramaru rushed to ask for help from headquarters. Suddenly, Kaido and his partner Nagumo come to meet them. Knowing that Touta is an immortal demon, Kaido will not hesitate to kill him. Instantly, Touta was sealed after receiving an attack from Kaido, while Kuramaru immediately sent an emergency signal to headquarters and tried to hold them alone there. But Kuramaru's strength is very different from Kaido's, so he is helpless against him. On the other hand, Karen, who was bathing, was suddenly ambushed by someone. Her body could not move because the power of the shadow bound it. Karen tried to use holy light to break free from the shadow, and immediately counterattacked until she managed to beat the person. Then, there was a boy trying to protect them. Kaido also praised the boy's courage, but they have been ordered to slaughter the residents in the slums because the official owner of the land wants to reclaim his property rights. So he hired an immortal demon hunter to kill everyone in the place. When the boy was about to be sent to another world, Touta suddenly revived and protected the boy. His body was enveloped by enormous power. Touta was confused about how to do it, but he felt much stronger. Not only did Karen also come there to fight Nagumo, so Touta could focus on fighting Kaido. Their battle was extraordinary. Although the body became like a donut, it awakened his hidden power called Magia Erebia. Nagumo explained that Magia Erebia can only be used by Yukihime and Nagi, who is Tauta's great-grandfather. After attacking him continuously, Touta almost killed Kaido. Fortunately, Touta could control that power. Because they were exhausted, they decided to end the fight by arm wrestling. After that came Yukihime. She used the power of ice to put out fires in the city, while Nagumo and Kaido said goodbye to them and immediately ran away from there. Then Touta asked Yukihime why he could use Magia Erebia. Yukihime explained that it was because Touta had drunk her blood, so he inherited her power. A few days later, at headquarters, Kuramaru suddenly felt strange when he saw Touta. Karen confirmed that it was a feeling of love, but Kuramaru was still too shy to admit it. Even Kuramaru explained that he and his family were sexless humans. One day, when their age was ripe, he could choose gender at will. Of course, it will affect his physical strength and the way he fights. A few days later, there was an organization member named Kiri. She can go back in time to meet Touta. Kiri explained that Touta would be kidnapped by Fate of Aruncus, the most powerful wizard in the world. It turns out that Kiri has repeatedly returned to the past and has even died many times. But this time is different because Touta already knows everything and protects Kiri from danger. Then Kiri told 80 years earlier when Fate, Yukihime, and Nagi worked together to solve an incident on Mars in order to save the world. Because they managed to overcome the incident, they were considered heroes. However, everything changed after Nagi's death. Suddenly, Fate's personality changed, and he gradually became an enemy of mankind. After knowing that Fate would soon appear to meet them, they prepared to capture Fate when he appeared there. Unfortunately, Fate already knew their plan, so he took Tauta's classmates in the village to be used as hostages. Fate asked Touta to come with him. Touta refused as well, and they immediately launched an attack while keeping the hostages away from the place. When Kiri wanted to take her to teleport, she was too late and turned into stone instead. As a result, their battle became messy and they faced each other's enemies, but there was a countdown time on Kiri's hand. That's why they had to defend against all the enemies until time ran out. At the last moment, they immediately gathered near Kiri. As a result, they managed to teleport to where the UQ holders' headquarters were. Even Yukihime was also there. Knowing that he had lost badly to them, as a gift, Fate would answer one question from them. Touta also asked Fate whether he had caused the death of his parents. Fate also admitted that it was his doing. Knowing the truth, Touta became angry and intended to take revenge on Fate. Nagi suddenly appeared before them. He explained that Fate's words were not valid at all. When Nagi wanted to tell Touta something important, Yukihime immediately ordered Kuramaru to destroy the illusion. She did that because Yukihime wanted to explain the truth to Touta. The next day, Yukihime used her original form as a little girl and told the events of 20 years ago, when Nagi defeated the evil witch and saved the world from destruction. Unfortunately, the witch's spirit has possessed Nega's body. For 20 years, Nagi held the witch's spirit inside his body. One day, he reached the limit of his strength so that he could no longer hold the witch. As a result, Nega's body was taken over by the witch. Yukihime also told him that Touta's parents, who died before, were not his parents. It turns out that Touta was not born like an ordinary person, but he was created from the genes of the strongest witch, Nagi. He is called a clone of Nagi. Knowing that he was just a clone of Nagi, of course, made Touta so sad. To comfort Touta, the girls who fell in love with him took Touta around the city. Once there, Touta met the girls who had fallen in love with Nagi. They also advised Touta to be himself and not to worry about it. Incidentally, there was a martial arts tournament. Because his condition had begun to improve, Touta was allowed to participate. At the beginning of the fight, Touta was already fighting someone in a powerful robe. He was named Cutlass. Instantly, Cutlass can force Touta to use his dark form. Suddenly came Nagi, whose body had been taken over by the Witch of Beginnings. Nagi intends to take Touta to the top of the tower with him. But Yukihime immediately came to stop him and tried to defeat the beginning witch in Nega's body. Of course, he wouldn't let that happen. He called his partner to help him defeat them. So, the UQ holder group prepared to start a fierce battle against them. When they confronted each other, the Witch of Beginnings transported their consciousness to another place. There, they continue to be attacked, which traumatizes them. Fortunately, a girl named Asuna came and tried to save them. It turned out that Touta's body had a gene from Asuna, so she could appear there. Asuna also protected them from the beginning witch attack. Not only that, Asuna gave a way to free Nagi from the influence of the beginning witch. He also said that his hidden strength would rise within 37 seconds. After getting various information, they were sent back to the real world. Thanks to Asuna's help, they could corner Nega's comrades and hold them until Touta could awaken his full power. When Touta's trouble came, Yukihime and Fate held back Nega's attack. Fate used his power to bring out their respective consciousnesses there, and with that, they could talk to the real Nagi. After talking to each other, the real power can finally rise. Although it has turned stronger, it is still not enough to defeat it. Even Touta was stabbed in the back by the enemy. All their struggles were not in vain because they had managed to buy time. They managed to activate a magic that could send Nagi to another dimension, where he reunited with classmates and girls in the past. Each of them launched an attack on Nagi to restore him. After receiving all these attacks, Nagi finally remembered everything, and with that, the power of the beginning witch was weakened. But it wasn't over, so he left to recover his strength. He would also wait for Touta's arrival at the top of the tower. After everything was over, they all returned to the headquarters and lived peacefully, while Touta suddenly revealed his feelings for Yukihime. Even though Yukihime also liked him, she couldn't accept it and wanted their relationship to remain as before. However this story ends, remember to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.